Hello, Captains. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, USS Endeavor. We got a special look at a ship that I am really starting to enjoy. So I figured I'd take her out and show her off a little bit to you guys. This is the Tier 7 Premium British cruiser, the Hampshire. Now, I normally don't advocate for spending money on Tier 7 premium ships because it is outlandishly expensive for what you actually get. But because I really enjoy this game and I love cruisers in general, I wanted to give this thing a shot, especially because it's very unique. And we're going to go over all that by taking a deep dive in the stats, looking at the ship, and then a couple of gameplays. It's not easy to play. And I love ships that are not easy to play because I like to challenge myself, especially in the cruiser realm. Now, battleships are but this thing, love it. So our commander that we're doing is Bruce Fraser, which is going to help his base perk with his just overall speed, but we're also speccing into concealment and reload with our inspirations. And because this thing only has AP, I can't spec into any fire perks. So our aiming systems mod 1 is in the first slot, steering gears in the second because you get a propulsion automatically with this because it's British, concealment in the third. And our last, we're using the main battery mod 3 that's in the epic condition, which is going to help with our overall main battery reload time. 10% to start and 2% every stack for 5 stacks throughout the match. On to the actual consumables. Our damage control party, 5-second duration, 57-second until you get it back. The repair party is decent. You get 2 charges of them. We also get a sonar, which detects ships up to 4.9 kilometers, which lasts for 100 seconds. And you get a catapult fighter that lasts for 100 seconds and is pretty standard. On to the actual stats themselves. The survivability, 37,600, which doesn't feel like a lot. And because of the way that your armor is, it's not a lot. But and that's kind of the weak point. You don't get a lot of health in this thing. So every hit that you take hurts, especially from battleships. 7% torpedo damage reduction. Onto the artillery. This is the main part of this ship. You have 203 millimeter guns that reach out to 17.7 kilometers, 8.3 second reload, decent 180 degree turn time. Maximum AP shell damage is just under 4,500. But these are short fused AP rounds. So what that means is that the threshold in order for it to arm doesn't take that much. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go into it. The torpedoes, you do have 8 of them, 4 on either side that can be launched 2 by tube or in a group of 4, up to 11 kilometers, 62 knot speed, a little over 15,000 damage per hit. They are detectable up to 1.3 kilometers away. So pretty standard except for the range. It's a little bit longer, which is nice. Your AA defense is rated at a 60, and you have 3 different zones with 5 different damage stacks. So you start out at 5 kilometers, and then it's at 2.5 that you get some more, and then everything at 2 kilometers. So that's your AA. Onto the maneuverability, you have 31.8 knots as a base top speed, which, to be honest, in a Tier 7 cruiser is a little under average, and it's not as fast. 7.8 second rudder shift time, we spec'd a little into that, and 710 meter turning circle radius is not the greatest. A little above average on that. The concealment, we have spec'd into it a little bit. So it's at 9.5 kilometer detection by sea, which is pretty darn good for a cruiser at Tier 7. And you have 6 kilometer detection by air, and firing and smoke, 6.6 kilometers. Onto the armor. This is where this ship is very unique. 25 millimeters takes up almost the first half of the ship off the nose. It encompasses all the guns and a little bit on the tail end. You strip all that away, and you do have a section that can bounce 15-inch shells. The deck is capable in that little yellow section of bouncing 406s. This is all AP, by the way. And then if we take that, if we look at this orange section, that is the Citadel, which is a very weird and unique Citadel shape. Look at this thing. Doesn't take up much of the ship, if I'm perfectly honest. It's actually a very small section that's not over any of the turrets. It's barely over the midsection. You basically have to aim towards the smokestacks just behind the conning tower. So that's that. It sits slightly above the waterline, but that's it. A little bit of a raised position of that shows you exactly where the citadel is and what to aim for. But if you can get ships to shoot at the bow underneath the turrets, they might do some penetration damage, but they won't hit the citadel. All right, Captain. So here we go on the first of 2 gameplays. First, we're on the map Hotspot in a domination game mode, spawning across from Bravo. We got a couple of destroyers, we got some cruisers, and we got some battleships. So it's pretty standard matchmaking in this one. So what we're going to do is we are going to play for Bravo. And I am going to be supporting this Hayate that is hopefully going to be pushing in there as well. Now, at the very beginning of this match, I wasn't quite sure exactly how I wanted to play it. There is 2 ways. If you spawn all the way on the far left, you can push all the way around that island if you're fast, because you don't want to leave your teammates hanging at the very beginning of this. At least I don't. But if you have a ship that's really good at flanking, then that is a really good way to go. However, the Hampshire is not fast. So that move probably would have ended in my demise. And moreover than anything with this ship is you want to try and maintain positioning and island cover as much as you possibly can, because of how squishy your armor is and how low your health pool is. You can get deleted rather quickly. So this is definitely a thinking man's cruiser. It is not one that you can run and gun and tank in and do well in either. It does have a very exposed citadel, albeit it's very small. Most of your ship can be overmatched by most battleships at this tier, whereas the only thing that it can truly bounce are 14-inch shells or below, which most of the battleships, even at tier 7, you're not going to face have that. Most are going to have 15-inch shells or 16. So being overmatched in this thing is rather easy against other battleships. Now, against cruisers, if they're shooting AP at you, you can angle appropriately and negate a lot of that damage. Again, the one thing and the one characteristic that I wanted to talk about a little bit more is the short-fused AP shells. Now, the cruisers that you're probably used to having these on are the Fiji and the Edinburgh that's at this tier, the tech tree version. But all of those have a lower caliber shell. They're at 152s, whereas this shell type is 203s. So you get a little bit better penetration just for the 203s. They just hit a little bit harder. You get 10 of them. And when they hit broadside targets, whether it's a cruiser or a battleship, you're going to be getting citadels out the wazoo. This Baltimore foolishly going in and getting absolutely whacked by everything inside is going to learn the hard way that is not the move you want to make as we take him down for the first blood. Now, we weren't the only one that was shooting at him, but that was kind of, I don't know what that Baltimore player was really thinking. It's not really the best move, especially considering he doesn't have torpedoes. Probably just a newer player that unfortunately learned the hard way. You don't want to make that maneuver that quick, that aggressive, in that ship that early on. But on back to the gameplay. Again, I'm trying to hold off on this section right here. Now, at this point, we've already taken the cap, and the destroyer is still in there. And I noticed that there were torpedoes coming in. So one of these destroyers, I felt, because I'm still spotted right now, is out here in this open water somewhere. So that's why I'm pinging the map right here, letting my teammates know that there's something up here smack dab in the middle, and I don't like it. And because I don't have radar, in this cruiser. It's one of the few well, it's not the few cruisers. There are some cruisers at this tier that are equipped with radar, but this one is not one of them. You do have hydro, which is going to help for torpedoes that are potentially coming in, as a smoke screen has now kind of given away exactly where that destroyer is. So I need to be aware of that. So that's why I'm pinging the map yet again to let my team know that is where the destroyer is. I'm asking for support from our destroyer to try and hunt that one down, because it's going to stifle my approach. Trying to push into that guy at this point would be a futile gesture. So at this point in the match, now that we have 2 caps and they have 2 caps and the ship count's tied, we need to start either defending the cap that we're on or trying to go and take another cap. However, because of the lack of speed that the Hampshire has, I'm not really well equipped to do that. Plus, because they took Charlie, there is a lot of hate over there, and pushing into these ships, especially these battleships, is only going to potentially end in my demise. Now, I don't have HE, so the one thing that you can do to help negate the Hampshire is just to simply stay bow in, especially if you're in a battleship. Now, your superstructure, that's fair game. Another thing I wanted to point out real quick here is that the 4 of the 5 turrets do swing rather well in a kiting position. While I'm in this position, I can basically swing left to right and or port to starboard if you want to talk nautical terms, and my 4 of my 5 turrets will basically stay on target the entire time, which is really, really good. You don't want to stay at kiting positions too much in this thing, but it is at your disposal. So if you ever get into a pinch, don't be afraid to kind of move back and forth, and you can get your, I would say, 80% of your firepower on target. There, obviously, our destroyer took out the enemy destroyer, and they both traded evenly, which is fine for me, because I really didn't like the fact that that destroyer was kind of out there willy-nilly doing that thing. However, if our destroyer earlier had tried to go and attack that one, we were in a position to be able to have helped him, for one, but 2, our Hayate that just ate it probably would have survived. So now that that is down, we get spotted yet again. So I'm assuming that one of the remaining 2 destroyers that are on the red team are moving into Bravo. And now that it's being captured, now I know for a fact that a destroyer has made its way probably from Charlie all the way over to Bravo. So the very idea that I had, one of the other destroyers had the exact same idea, which also tells me that this destroyer player is no slouch. So I need to be on my P's and Q's here. Now, the one thing with all British ships, it's just something you're just going to have to get used to, is that on the plus side, you have very good built-in, without speccing into it, acceleration. You basically get the acceleration mod in every single cruiser for the Brits at no additional cost. So that's one perk that I always love to have. So that's why I have steering gears in the second, because it automatically comes equipped with that. However, one downside to the British cruisers is that although they can get up to speed rather quickly, it's like they're stopping. Whenever you try to stop these things, it's like stopping on ice. They just keep sliding. So you have to plan when you want to stop. As you can see, I can accelerate really, really fast, but that can also be a downfall if you're trying to hop from island to island without getting spotted. Trying to be aware of the fact that the destroyer still could throw torpedoes my way. I just am very leery about getting around this island just yet until I can get my hydro back, which now I just got it back. I don't mind playing the patient game right at this moment because we have cap control, even though the ships are tied. Here we get to show the tube-by-tube firing of the torpedoes on that target that's coming around the corner and they are going to not expect these from me. And as long as they stay on that same line, we are going to take them out. They are pushing one of our other ships, and so there we get 1 to 2 torpedo hits and take that cruiser down, which is definitely huge for us. But at the same time, we lose 2 ships back to back, so we go from a ship advantage to immediately going down, and now we have to take out this one of these last 2 destroyers, because that's going to really hurt us now that it's in this late game section. Here, our cruiser, which is in the Cleveland, pops a radar, and that allows us to take free shots at this Udachi, which definitely needs to go. Unfortunately, I'm trying to slow down, but again, because of the drifting problem, I'm not able to stop fast enough, and although he is going to start moving out there, we're only going to really be able to get our back turrets in, which isn't enough to take him out. However, the Cleveland does do a good job in taking him out, and now it's a 3v3. We have 2 cruisers and a destroyer against a mines, another destroyer, and a battleship, a key that's out there. And at this point, I wasn't quite sure where he was until I got whacked right there, which is a thing. The 410 caliber shells of the key is more than capable of whacking us really hard. And when you hold an extreme angle like that, you can get punished, as you saw. It's just another reminder that this thing can blow up at any moment. We are able to pop our heel, but we are trying to disengage. Our turning circle radius is not the best where we hit this island, so we're forced to have to back up. And at this point, hindsight being what it is, I probably should not have taken a shot here, because the key is definitely looking in this direction towards me. However, the mines is so low, and he's such a juicy target, and I almost take him out right there. But the Cleveland finishes him off. But in doing so, in that brief amount of time that I was spotted, the key shoots another salvo and almost takes us down again. He doesn't get a citadel that time against us. That definitely would have taken us out. But really hurts us yet again. And we're 10 seconds from getting our heel back, but we get spotted again by the remaining destroyer, which I wasn't quite sure where he was until just now. It's the Smalland, which can definitely out DPM us. We're trying to heal back, but unfortunately the key, for lack of a better term, he had his sights keyed in on our position. Pun very much intended. So unfortunately we do eat it here, and that leaves a 2v2 situation for both teams. Now, we do have the cap control, and so we'll watch the rest of this. The Cleveland is definitely low, and if I were the Cleveland and I just saw, me get taken out, knowing that there's a destroyer coming into the cap, I understand the play here in trying to take out the destroyer. I totally understand it. However, there's a key out there that's not spotted that is relying on their destroyer to spot for them. And at this point, I believe the Cleveland is getting spotted. Now, I have no way of knowing that because I can't see what he sees. I can't see the icons. But knowing what's about to happen to him, I'm kind of guessing that that's what's going on right now. He is being spotted. And we're going to go ahead and zoom on out here. And unfortunately, shots come in from the key right there. And as he gets spotted, and boom, there goes the Cleveland, which unfortunately puts us at a bit of a disadvantage. However, if you're looking at the score, we are just tied. But because of the cap that's being capped, we barely, ever so slightly, take the lead. And because it's even caps now, we're never going to relinquish this lead unless our destroyer dies. And it was in this moment that I was hoping that this Fletcher player would be wise enough to not try to go and foolishly throw his ship away when we are just barely ahead in score. It's only a 2-3 point lead that we don't relinquish unless he dies and we lose, or they end up getting on a cap. But there's less than a minute left, so I am so very thankful to this Fletcher player for bugging out and realizing that we already have the win. He just doesn't need to die, which is such a refreshing thing to see. Competent players that play for the win rather than seeking damage. Now, thankfully, he is going to push in here, but he's already got the win, and they're not going to be able to spot him. That was one issue that I potentially had, but now that he's on the cap, the time was expiring anyway, and we win on just the very smallest of margins. So we take the win there, and don't quite make the top of the leaderboard, but that was such a competitive match that I wanted to show. So that's game number 1 in the books. Let's see game number 2. All right, captains, on to the second game. On the map, Riposte. Again, we're in the Hampshire, and we are spawning across from A in a domination game mode. We are top tier, as this is a tier 7, tier 6 lobby. So no carriers to have to deal with either. So we are going to support our destroyer that is in the Jaeger. And it is Jaeger season right now because we're approaching the end of the campaign and there's Jaegers everywhere. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Everybody's getting the ship and trying it out, and that's a lot of torpedoes. So, but we are going to go in and support him. He has no smoke. He has no, but he doesn't have a whole lot of utility other than the torpedoes that he has. So if he goes up against any other ship, pretty much anything, he's going to be a little bit at a disadvantage. So we're going to come out here and we're going to support him. We would support any destroyer that was out there as long as they're going for the cap, which I'm thankful to see that he is. So we are going to come over here and kind of nestle ourselves right next to this island for a couple of reasons. We want to just kind of be patient, see how things develop. And I don't want to push out too hastily because, like we talked about in the first video, this thing is pretty much made out of explodium, and if you if you expose too much of your ship too early on, you could get one tapped. Now, the Citadel is small, but when you're tightly angled like this, it doesn't take much for shells to arm. You have plenty of armor for battleship shells to arm, so you just got to maintain good positioning, good island cover, make the moves when you feel like it is safe to do so. But early on in the match, you don't want to push out into open water and just get blasted. Now, the cap is now being contested by our destroyer is kind of nestled up against this island, which is where I wanted to go. So I'm trying to figure out where do I need to position myself. There's another destroyer coming in, but it's the Udachi, which is not a gunboat and is going up against a Fletcher. So anybody care to guess how this is going to end? The Udachi gets absolutely melted, and we lose our first destroyer right off the bat. Now, having seen this, I wonder if our Jaeger partner probably thought, well, I can't push into a Fletcher. I'll get absolutely blasted. But the Fletcher has no idea that I'm right here. And the Jaeger dumps torps. Thankfully, just to mention, if you didn't see that, the dead Udachi did take out that Harbin, which is pretty impressive considering that he should have seen those coming. But kudos to the Udachi for taking one with him. Now that the Fletcher sees that it's a Jaeger that he's up against, this Fletcher is... I don't blame the Fletcher for making this play. The Fletcher has no idea that I'm right here. I haven't been spotted yet, and he's going to push out to try and finish off this Jaeger, but in doing so, he's going to run right into me, and this is where I come into play, and I'm going to protect my ship. And so this was kind of like a Leroy Jenkins moment as we take out the Fletcher, and he probably was like, oh boy, I up. So Jaeger lives to fight another day. Torpedoes do come at us, but thankfully we dodged it. So Fletcher down, which is a huge threat to our Jaegers, which are the destroyers, which does put us at a very good advantage, seeing as now they only have one destroyer left on their team, and we have the destroyer advantage and the slight ship advantage. So first order of business is to finish taking Alpha Cap and then get into Bravo and take that cap. But I'm not really well equipped right now to get in there. It's still relatively early in the game. There are still a lot of battleships left, and I don't need to needlessly throw my ship away. That's what the destroyers are for. Not to throw their ship away, but to get into caps and cap them, is what I'm trying to say. Unless you're that Fletcher who did throw his ship away. But he had no idea it was there, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He was making a play to try and secure the cap and take out that destroyer, which I think was the right move to make. He just ran into an unsuspecting foe in me. So just got a little unfortunate there. And us positioning in the way that we did definitely surprised him. So now we're going to move up a little bit closer to the Bravo cap. Still not planning on getting in there just yet. I'm going to utilize this island over here. I do notice that the Vladivostok is way out there on the far flank, and it looks like a lot of these ships on the Reds are very comfortable with just kind of nestling themselves behind these islands. So if they're going to hide, then I am going to try and get in here and potentially take the cap if I could squeeze in before it gets nabbed. No, I just miss out on that. But we are moving in here, and looking back on it, it may not have been the best idea to do this. It's still relatively early in the match, but I do want to position up here to these islands, and I feel like I can still get out of dodge if I need to, and I want to be able to get into a position where I can get some crossfires on some ships. This Abruzzi that's out here is angled relatively well, but his armor is also relatively weak, and we have short-fused 203 AP rounds. So we're going to start testing these out against the Abruzzi. We're not going to be getting the greatest shots at first. We kind of need him to show a little bit more broadside. I mean, we are getting some damage, but if he turns broadside, that's going to be a lot more devastating to him. We are getting some bounces, a couple of pens, but now that he turns broadside, as you can see right there, now we can start really getting some damage as we get a citadel there. But unfortunately, it goes dark, and now we're going to back up a little bit. We're going to keep some islands in between me and these battleships because I don't want to get blown up. This Vladivostok out here is focusing other things, and I'm thankful for that because if he would have shot at me, he probably could have taken me out, but he doesn't do that. And right there, we lose two ships practically simultaneously, which puts the ship count 4-4. We have cap control. We are getting Charlie Cap. We have everything going for us right now. We're just tied in ships. Here I want you to pay attention. This is a Veneto, which is a pretty heavily armored target. But we are going to start pumping some shells into the broadside. And this is, again, you aim a little bit high. And look at this shot. We almost take him out in that salvo. You can get some massive damage with these guns against battleships. If they flash broadside, there is no target that is safe out there. I don't care who you are. These 203s and the short fuse characteristics that it has can really punish any broadside target. Doesn't matter what it is. battleship, cruiser, destroyer, it's gonna hurt. And that's why I'm really enjoying this ship, because if you know how to position well and you can stay relatively hidden, you can really put a hurting on some of these ships. Now, at range, you're going to lose out a little bit on the penetration, even on battleships. So this works best at medium ranges. Full max range, I'm not saying you're not going to get any damage, and these guns are pretty darn accurate. Even at range, your grouping is really, really good, which is another huge high point of this. But as you can see at range, we got some shatters and ricochets. Now, I don't know if we hit the right thing, but we're not going to get a lot of... In fact, these next couple salvos, you're going to see, we get absolutely no damage whatsoever. We're getting nothing but bounces and shatters. Now, I don't know if we're hitting the turrets or the front part, and he is slightly angled. We really need to be hitting this superstructure. The Vladivostok did decide to stop, and now is backing up. Sorry for the lag there. I had a little bit of a lag spike. I don't know what that was. I thought I was going to drop from the game, but thankfully it was just a little bit of lag, and that's it. Here, now you're going to see that the ship count is 3v2. It's just this Vladivostok out here, and it is an on-halt. But I'm well hidden, and each ship is basically targeting the other ship. Here I wanted to show a little bit of an advanced strategy. When you are at range, sometimes it is difficult to tell without actually looking at the smokestack. Are they moving forward or backwards? When they get that far out, sometimes it can be a little hard to see. Are they going backwards? When are they going to start moving forwards? And if you have a ship that is equipped with torpedoes, one maneuver that you can do is when you're targeting the ship, just simply switch to your torpedoes, and that cone will let you know the best line in order to hit them with torpedoes. But in no way am I going to hit him with torpedoes. What I want is he still moving backwards? So when I switch to my torpedoes, I'm looking at that angle where if it's behind the ship, that means that the ship is actually reversing. Here in a second, you're about to see that, and every shot that I take, I'm switching because I'm trying to see, is he moving forward? Because if he is, I need to adjust my aim. But here, unfortunately, we lose another ship, so now it's down to a 2v2. And even though we have the points lead, the overwhelming points lead, if they kill me and this other ship out here, then they win. So I need to be aware of the fact that at any point, if I get spotted, I'm going to need to drop spot. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder to try to make sure that I'm not going to get lit up by the on-halt that's way out there. The Vladivostok is still reversing, but there comes a point where, as you can see, the cone is starting to jog in the other direction. Maybe right here, you can see how now it's moving forward of the ship, which tells me that the Vladivostok is now accelerating forward as opposed to reversing. So now I need to adjust my aim. So that's just a little bit of an advanced strategy for you captains out there. If you didn't know about that, now you know. You can dictate, or you can see exactly which way a ship is maneuvering, even if it's hard at range. Sometimes it's wonky. Battleship does take out the Vladivostok, but the on-halt takes him out. So now it's just a 1v1. And everything falls on me to secure the win here. So, what would you do in this scenario? You're up 700 to essentially 360. Overwhelming points lead. I am in no way interested in padding my stats and potentially throwing my ship away against a very well-armored on-halt, which I am not entirely sure what his health is at this point. But there is no shame at this point of the game tucking tail and running, which is exactly what I'm going to do. There is no reason whatsoever for me to go after that thing and destroy him, because for one, he has 350 millimeter shells, which are more than capable of ruining my day. I can bounce. I think I might be able to bounce his shells, his AP shells, if he shoots at me with my 25 millimeters of armor. But I don't want to test that theory. Now, had the game been in the other direction and they had the cap control and we were down in score and it was a 1v1, well then at that point I would have had no choice. If I want to win, I would have to go toe-to-toe with him and hope and pray that his RNG misses me and is unfavorable and I'm able to take him out. But thankfully, in this particular scenario, our team played it well enough for me not to have to do that. And that is a lot more satisfying than trying to win harder. There's no reason for me to take this guy out. I'm just shooting some salvos out there because I know I'm not going to get another shot. And with less than a minute left, I'm just going to go ahead and park it right behind this island. We're going to go ahead and drop anchor. And we're going to let the full crew know that they've done well and that they can break out the drinks early. So that's kind of a look at the Hampshire, however you say it. Sorry to my British folks out there that's probably going to get on my case for butchering the way that you say that thing. But I'm not British, so there you go. And here at the end, noticing that he's an Xbox player and we've got the win, I figured, you know what? I don't do this too often, but I got time. I decided to go ahead and send him a GG, let him know, nice try, whatever, but good game. And but unfortunately, he never messaged me back. So I don't know if he got the message or he didn't care, or I'm just thankful he didn't send me any hate mail and tell me, F off or something. But anyway, that's a look at the Hampshire, the Tier 7 Premium British Cruiser, which I think is very strong. But if you don't angle appropriately or you miss position, you can get taken out like we saw in the first game where that key just kind of had its way with me. So, really, really enjoying the ship. Would I recommend spending the money for it? Well, only you can make that determination. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. I did it because I really enjoy this game and I have the funds to be able to do that, and I allocate it and I budget for that. But don't spend it unless you don't. If you don't have it, don't spend it, is what I'm trying to say. But I don't fault anybody for buying stuff in this game because I do it. So, to each their own. Thank you, captains. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. Let me know if you'd like to see a ship featured on this channel. I'd be happy to do it if I got it. But until next time, fair winds and fair seas, captains. This is the USS Endeavor signing off.